Hello, everyone, and welcome to another live episode of the Ordinary People Doing Extraordinary Things podcast. I'm your host, Carrie Roberts, and today we're doing something a little bit different. I have a couple guests on today. We're doing something I like to call connected conversations, where we have various topics and we talk about different things. And I have two lovely ladies with me. I have Queenie and Dorina, and I am so excited to have you both here. So thank you and welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi,
Thank you for
Carrie.
having us.
Serena.
So before we kind of get into our big topic, what I really like to do is talk about both of you and your background. And Dorina and I known each other for a little while. Queenie, we met the other day and talked for about an hour, which was lovely. So Queenie, I'll start with you. What were you like as a kid? Like your personality? What were you into? What were you excited about?
Oh my goodness. So thank you, Carrie. As a kid, I grew up on a farm probably until I was about 12 years, about 11. I grew up on a farm with my grandmother. So I was just a young kid, living in Robeson County, North Carolina. A lot of people don't know where that's at, but I'm repping for Robeson County. Very rural. That was the way we lived. And so I grew up there. And then once my grandmother became sick, I had to live with my mother, who was more of a city girl. And so I wound up living with her. But I knew then that I was different, meaning more artsy. My personality was always very curious. I always challenged everything. I knew I was an empath. I didn't know the word at the time, but I knew I could feel and see certain things. I had certain energies that was different from other people. And I just kind of enjoyed that space as long as I could. I didn't have a perfect childhood after living with my mother, but all before that, I had a great childhood. I was able to explore who I was and own that. And my siblings and my grandmother, they all accepted it. So now I'm the same woman 10 years later.
I love that. And I grew up in rural New Jersey, so in Hunterdon County in Pittstown, and people are like, where the heck is that? So I resonate with that as well. So totally know what that farm life is like. All right, Dorina, what about yourself? When you were a young girl, what were you like? What were you excited about?
I am the middle of 5 kids, and anything you know about middle children, that was me.
Wait, what does that mean? I'm the oldest. So what is your definition of middle child?
The middle kid, you're not the oldest, you're not the youngest, you're just like in the middle, and maybe sometimes people forget about you or, whatever. But I remember being a happy child, generally speaking. I remember being very silly. And when Queenie was talking, something she said kind of resonated with me when you said that your family allowed you to be who you were. You were able to just kind of be who you were. I don't remember feeling like that. I remember kind of like being tamped down, just to don't be too loud, don't be too this, don't be too that. But I was generally happy when my siblings weren't. I loved them, but when my siblings weren't terrorizing me. I've got plenty of stories about that, but I was a happy child. And I remember also just caring about justice. I said one day I want to be a lawyer. And actually I still want to take the bar, even if I never practiced, but I care about people. I cared about people and cared about justice. And really I was silly. I had a friend in at church, the church that we were going to, she called me deranged because I guess that has a different meaning now. But then it was like, Dorina's just very silly. She's crazy, etc. And do you hear the echo? And is the echo okay?
You're good, girl. We got you. Yeah. Yeah. It's funny. Yeah. They always say like when you're a young kid, and I say, like 8 to 10, because you're kind of a little bit more on your own, kind of the things that you like, a lot of what you did or you like then is a lot of who you are now. So it's interesting that you were saying that, Dorina, and what you were saying, Queenie. I always was like teaching. I was always teaching something. I was always like teaching dance or like showing people how to do stuff. And I always really enjoyed kind of that interaction as well. And Queenie, you had said you're a creative person, you're an artist, and behind you is your artwork as well. So are those paintings or drawings?
These are paintings, and this is just a sketch it's a drawing. You can kind of see it.
Yeah.
I'm working on a whole collection of these.
That's
So
beautiful.
yeah.
So, okay, so you
She's
did
very
art when you
talented.
say you're like an artist. So was it more fine arts or did you do like dance or singing or like what type of art were you into?
Yeah. So in my hood, it wasn't quite called that, but 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 no, I was very creative. I had a brother, my I was about to say my favorite brother, but everybody know he's my favorite brother. Don't worry. My brother, he, would put clothes on me and tell me to model. So we would do that. So I learned how to walk and how to model because my brother taught me that when I was like 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. But then I just realized that I love sketching and I would doodle all the time and I love painting. And it wasn't some, I mean, I was always very good at that in school. But a young black kid, with not a lot of funds, it wasn't like I could really like go to art class. I had to just get it where I could, and so I would draw everywhere. I would create my walls. I would decorate my walls, and probably like 20 years after I left my home there, the house structure was still there, and I walked into my bedroom from when I was a kid. Some of my stuff was still stuck on the wall because I crazy glued it on the wall.
Wow,
So yeah, so
that
I
is awesome.
yeah. So you're right. Who you are at 8, 9, 10, definitely. I guess if allowed, it becomes a part of who you are as an adult because this is definitely who I was then too.
Yeah, no, I love that. I always wish that I could do any type of fine art.
Yeah.
That's not my area. Like I said, I was always a dancer, which actually, how I originally met Dorina, she has friends, mutual friends, Amanda and Christina, and I taught her kids dance one or two times. And then Dorina went out clubbing with us as well. So I've seen Dorina's dance side too. So Dorina, were you into the arts at a young age or sports, or what did you kind of enjoy as well?
Definitely not sports. I was more of a reader and I liked to write. I wasn't good at it, but I definitely liked to write and I would try to create stories. And it's something that I actually haven't done. Like I used to even write poetry. I remember there was this is when I was a little bit older, where there was a contest for New Edition fans, and you had to write like a poem. You could win. I forgot what you were even supposed to win, whether it was going to a concert or whatever. And I wrote this whole poem that was really, it wasn't original because it was all of their lyrics. But there was a point in time where I just liked to read, write, and write poetry. I don't know what happened to that. I don't even like to read poetry now, which is very odd. But I can't draw. I've never been able to draw. I think the most drawing I've done was for the Continental Congress. That may have been like fifth grade, which kind of falls in line with what you're saying about the age. And we were supposed to draw the Continental Congress. And I remember I was probably just an outline, but I've never been, and maybe Taboo or playing some other game where you have to like, scribble something. That's it
Mhm.
for me, but no, I'm definitely not. I'm not artsy.
Well, but artsy
I
doesn't
want
have
all
to
of the
be
credit on
painting.
myself.
I think it's funny because I used to write stories as a kid too. I used to write creative stories about fairies all the time, rainbow fairies, chocolate fairies. I don't know, any food and different things that they would do. I don't write as much anymore, but I think that that's really neat that all of us kind of have these different artistic backgrounds. And and then of course you go through high school, maybe you go through college, and you decide to kind of choose this career path. Queenie, I'll start with you. Like, what was your envision initially at maybe like 17 or 18? Like, this is what I think I want to do versus the type of work that you're doing now.
17 or 18, excuse me. I think because of just my upbringing with my mother, living in a home with an addict was a little different. So my mother was a drug addict, and she was an alcoholic, and she was abusive. And so by the time I was 17 or 18, I was already emancipated minor, and I was living on my own. And at that time, I wanted to be a guidance counselor, and because my biggest mentor was my guidance counselor, and so I wanted to be just like her. And that was really the vision I had for myself. And then just as life kind of took its own turns, and I leaned into that, have not yet gone back to school for guidance counseling, but I still, although I became a hairstylist and a salon owner and all those other things, I found myself operating in that space of coaching, counseling, supporting, giving back, pouring in. And so now, I'm a case manager. I mean, I work in I work in homeless services, I work in human services. So although I'm not a school case manager, school counselor, I am a case manager and I still do a lot of the same things. So yeah, that's the path that my life was.
Yeah, but you also now have a podcast, which I feel like also is kind of like guidance. I don't want to say counselor, but like guidance slash, leadership. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, exactly. There's like a lot of similarities there. Yeah. So I just want to go back for a second with you, Queenie. You were talking about, living with your mom. I don't know. Was that something like nobody tried to pull you out of that situation? Was that something where they felt like it wasn't bad enough that you were okay to stay there? Or how did that work?
It's interesting that you asked that. I grew up with her in Fayetteville, North Carolina. So it was far from the country, a little more city, a little more inner cities, right? And she moved me probably to the worst part of Fayetteville, because there's some really good places in Fayetteville, but she went straight where it was working for her. So in that environment, everyone was doing the same thing. So who's going to save you when this is the norm? It was just normal. But I wanted to be out. And so
what is water?
Yeah, I was blessed with the guidance counselor who was, her name is Maxine Anders. She's since deceased a couple years ago. But she took me under her wings and totally steered me in a whole different way. She saw my potential. She saw that I was like scoring off the board whenever I would get certain tests. And back then it was SAT, CAT, all that. So I was like way above average. And so she really took the time to try to get to know what was going on in my life. And once she got to know me, she although she couldn't take me into her home, she guided me probably every day of my life until she passed away, which was, like I said, a few years ago. So she's the person that kind of saved me from it, even though I had to live in it. But she let me know that, you can become an emancipated minor. You can live on your own. You can do this. You can get out of this neighborhood. She gave me Black women to look up to. She was a white lady, like I said, but she gave me Black women like Maxine Waters to look up to. And to aspire to be like. And so she let me know that I could. And that's really how I've lived my life, from her words of encouragement all of these years. So the person you see is because of who she became in my life. You know what I mean? She became that strong woman that would not allow me to be consumed or become a statistic.
How did you, it's wonderful that you had this person in your life, but she obviously wasn't living with you. She wasn't with you all the time.
Right.
When you're, especially under 18, what were you telling yourself? What were you doing to say, okay, this is my situation now. This is horrible, but I am going to be okay and I'm going to get out of this. Like, how did you mentally get yourself into that space to be able to know you could push through and be able to leave by the time you were 17?
So I think I just have this, I don't know, maybe like an adaptability to things, right? So I knew I needed to adapt and overcome. And I don't know why my mind works this way, but I found people in the environment that were navigating. My mind always was outside of the environment. Like, I knew that there was a different world out there. I knew that there was different opportunities. I knew what normal felt like and looked like because my grandmother had introduced me to that at a very young age. Unlike you, Dorina, I was the baby of 5, and they were all older and doing their own thing. And so I was kind of just lost. I was young, but the streets taught me a lot because I really didn't know I didn't know. And, but I linked up with people that were very street savvy, and I got into tons of trouble. But my mind was always, I'm getting out of here as soon as I'm old enough. And I started working at 16, and I've never probably not worked since then. So it was really just, she told me I could. I already knew that, there was something else out there, and I just went for it. So yeah, that's what I have in me is that fight. I don't know any other way.
You know, when I hear stories like yourself and the way people always tell them, like you, like, like I just, I just figured it out and it was fine. When I know it wasn't fine. And like, I congratulate you because that's hard, like I can't even imagine that. And so I think, you're downplaying so much of the strength that you have as a person. So I think that's incredible that you were able to get your mindset at a young age, obviously with the help of that woman, but a lot of that's the work you did on yourself. So congratulations to you, because that's huge, Queenie.
Thank you.
Dorina, what about you? So you, around that age for you, was there kind of, because you were about justice, you're drawing maps, you're doing, a couple of writings. What was your thought of where to go next and versus kind of what you do now?
It's funny. You said that you like to teach. And, if you talk to my sister, one thing we remember, me and my siblings, our memories are very different. I'll say, hey, do you remember XYZ? They're like, no, I don't remember that. And vice versa. But one thing she and I do remember is like playing secretary or playing school. Mm-hmm. And I remember being in the backyard of this house we lived in Lancaster, California. Nobody knows where Lancaster is.
I was going to say Lancaster, PA, where the Amish live. I didn't know, but no. Okay, California.
California. If my family's listening, hey. I remember being in the backyard and I was playing like I was a secretary, and my boss's name was Jim Jones, and I had fake papers, and I'm like, I just, I like to watch movies, and how they have the pen and they look like they're all official and they're shuffling papers and they're doing. To me, there was something appealing to me about that as a young girl. And, my first job outside of the military, my boss's name was Jim Jones. No lie.
What?
But no lie. No
you
lie.
Manifested.
Jim Jones. We're connected on Facebook right now. But so, yes, I wanted to be a lawyer. I wanted to help people. I think as I got a little bit older, I felt counseling tendencies, but the reason I even joined the military, nothing I'm doing now has any applicability to what I was doing as a teenager, nor when I first left California. But I really wanted to leave California because I broke up with my boyfriend, and I was sad, and I didn't want to be there anymore. But so it was very impulsive, it was an impulsive decision. But now, so I was a cop for 10 years in the military.
Wait, you were? I knew you were in the military. I didn't know you were a cop as well. You were like the calmest person. And you're like, I was in the military. I was a cop. I did this. I know you do other stuff now. Continue. I'm impressed.
Age has brought on, a little bit of calmness. You should have saw me in my 20s. You should have seen me in my 20s, a whole different person. But I didn't even want to be a cop. But that was also back to my lack of thinking through my decisions. And, I went into this kind of open general field, and that's where I ended up. And I hated it. I was in Japan. I didn't want to be there. But I learned to love law enforcement because back to when I was younger, to me, it was about looking out for people, and it was about justice. It wasn't about, walking around with a baton and, being a bully to people. It was about helping people. So I did that for some years, but I didn't get out and end up being a cop. I got out and I was an admin. I spent years being an admin, and then I'm a project manager now. But again, that has nothing to do with what I thought I wanted to be as a teenager. But I think the difference is where I am now, the company that I work for now, it allows me, I am in a position to affect change. I can hire people that look like me. I can build the team that I want, and I can be a leader to the people that work for me, and impart. You talk about me being calm. I can impart these things that I've learned over the years, and to me, that is very rewarding. I may have my bad days at work. I may have people that I don't want to deal with, but I have to look at the bigger picture. I am able to affect change. Now, just because I am where I am and I am the age that I am, I don't feel like my life is over. I feel like there's still much for me to do. And I think it's, one of the reasons I've always been so drawn to Queenie. We met, I was working in Springfield. I needed someone to do my hair, and I just happened upon her shop. But there was always something about Queenie that has always drawn me to her. And I think it's that spirit that she has, that you talk about her being the coaching and the guidance and the counseling. Not that I was looking to her for that, but it was something that was appealing to me. And I love that about her and the effect that she has on people, and how people respond to her and respond to her energy. But I think there's no straight line to where I was or wanted to be or thought I wanted to be as a teenager to where I am now. It's like this.
Yeah, this is very common. And it was funny because how Queenie and I met, you had said, you should have on your podcast is Queenie. She's amazing. And I said, I said, I'd love to. I said, but what about you, Dorina? And you were like, I don't know. Ask her first. So then Queenie and I spoke, and Queenie was like, hey, I don't actually know why we're meeting, but Dorina said that we should talk. And we talked for an hour and loved her. And then we were like, okay, now we need to get Dorina involved, which is how this whole thing happened. So I agree with her energy and spirit from the little I know. And Queenie, you and I had talked about kind of this conversation, and you titled it, we are more alike than we are different. And I'd love for you to kind of share with what that means to you in general, and also in the context of kind of things that are going on in the world today. And we're talking about June 2020 at this point.
Yeah. So you guys are funny.
We are true.
Yeah. Well, yes, we are more alike than different. I've always believed that, and someone will always try to go against that, no matter what. And our current state, the world is so divided. America is so divided. And as I talk to women like yourselves, I see we're more alike than we are different. Doesn't matter the color of our skin. It doesn't matter our hair. It doesn't matter if we have children or not. It doesn't matter our sexuality or orientation. We are more alike than different. And we have many common threads that keep us and link us together. And I just feel that more conversations should be had and more coming together should happen so that we can see our similarities versus always looking for a reason to say we're different or that person's this way or that way, and then having these prejudices. So when I talked with you, Carrie, we just kind of chatted. And in the conversation, we chuckled about how similar we were, how many things we could relate to. I'm a Black girl, you're a white girl. That's the one thing that everyone can see. But when we start talking, we're the same people. We're like, girl, I did that too. Or I want the same thing. Or, at the end of the day, I just want to leave the world better than I found it. And that's the common thread for many of us. And I believe that America should start having these kind of conversations, and we should start coming together. And we should get rid of all of the extra noise and all the other narratives that we're told, and give conversation a chance. And this is why, you've created this space, and just in our introductions and in the little things that we're talking about, you can see the pieces connecting like, girl, I was like that. That was me too. Or I can relate to that, because we're all really the same. You and I, Carrie, got on here saying, oh my God, my hair is still wet.
We both like, we just showered, my hair is wet. She's like, mine too.
Yes, we're all trying to get ready for the show. We are more similar than not. We're all talking about how we want to help people, how we want to give back. There's so many different lanes that we're all driving in, but it's all for the same cause. We're all going in the same direction, no matter how we go, Dorina, but it's for the same cause, So I appreciate you opening up this space for this. And I hope the people that watch and, your viewers and our viewers, I hope that they see like, yep. I guess I can relate to what Carrie's saying, or what Dorina's saying. So yes, thank you.
Yeah. And I think, beautifully said, Queenie. And I think what's interesting, just from what I'm learning, Queenie, one of the things you said was, okay, I grew up on a farm with my grandmother. Then you kind of had this certain childhood with your mom, but then you had a very, big influence from a woman who is white, who was your guidance counselor. Dorina, you're saying at one point you're a military police. So, and then you're part of the Black community. So there's so many pieces. So Dorina, I'd love to kind of hear your thoughts on either the concept of we're more alike than we are different, or anything you have kind of, even just with your own background of what you're talking about.
I'm going to start by saying that I feel like that we can create the community that we want in our personal lives.
Yeah.
And there's a reason why the three of us are here right now. You guys said you talked for an hour, which I think is amazing. And then we're like, well, why are we talking? Well, because, I identified two women that I think are amazing and doing amazing things. And clearly that has borne itself out and will continue to bear itself out. But if you don't mind my saying, Queenie, I was listening to one of her podcasts earlier this week. I don't remember what day it is. I don't even know what today is, but it was one day this week. And a comment was made about, why do we have to talk about our differences? And I don't necessarily agree with that, because I think that if people say things like, well, I don't see color, or I don't see this and I don't see that, well, then you're not really appreciating who that person is.
Right.
You have to be able to see the things that make us different and acknowledge the things that make us different and appreciate the things that make us different. While at the same time saying, just so you're saying, Queenie, I'm a Black girl from California, you're a white girl from New Jersey, you're a Black girl from the farm. It doesn't matter where we come from. Yes, matters, because it can inform who we are as people, but it also helps the way we interact with other people and how we're able to engage and how we're able to find those similarities and be empathetic. I was battling with some people, I admit it, on Facebook earlier, and I just found myself saying, where is our humanity? Where is our common humanity? We can think whatever we want to think about anything. I won't get political or in all of this. And I think that should be a common thread for all of us when we talk about being more like than different. What about our humanity? What about our empathy? What about our sympathy? What about us saying, that wasn't my experience, but I can appreciate that it was your experience. Mm-hmm. I can appreciate how your experience informed you and made you who you are. That's how I see that.
Yeah.
Yes, 100%. I agree. And I think you're right on social media. It's challenging because people feel like they're behind a screen, so they can just put whatever they want, type whatever they want. I've been seeing a lot of memes that I look at them and I'm like, that can't be true, because it looks like it was put together by a 5-year-old, but people reshare it. And there have been times that I've been like, hey, like, this isn't even correct data. Like, if you do the research, and I have to sometimes call people out, and I'll say, like you said, like, hey, like, it's okay to think differently, but let's kind of make sure we're coming from a good place, or we're really kind of showcasing the data. So I agree with that point 100%. And, one of the things that Queenie, when you and I were talking about we're more alike than we are different, we talked about just, even just as women, the different silly things we go through, like we were talking about before the show, or just like, struggles we've had as women in the workplace. We had talked, all three of us have been divorced. So that's kind of interesting as well. I don't have children, but the two of you do. And so you kind of start to create, these bonds. And I'm curious, like, I know I tend to be an extroverted person. I like to talk to anyone and everything about everything, but most people don't. So why do you think either there's this fear to talk to people in general, or like, I don't know, do you have any thoughts on that, on why people are so scared to kind of have real conversations? Do you think it has to do with technology? Does it have to do with race? Or like, what do you think is the issue here?
Dorina, you want to take it first?
I think that, and if I hearken back to the conversations I was just having, and I wasn't very angry, I wasn't cursing or anything, unlike a couple days ago where I was, but I think people are afraid to let go of their long-held beliefs, the things that ground them, even if the things that ground them are, from my perspective, BS. They are still the things that ground them, and they're not willing to. If things have been inculcated into you, if you've been hearing the same type of narrative your entire life, for wherever you are, a 20-year-old, a 50-year-old, a 30-year-old, wherever you are, if you've been hearing the same thing your entire life, and then someone wants to bring to you something very different. You mentioned, you kind of gave a data point for where we are. It's June 2020. I thought you were going to say something different about Juneteenth, but people don't want to hear anything about Juneteenth. They don't want to hear these new things, because it challenges what they believe, and it's a mental blockage, and it's a bit of an immature blockage as well, because we all should be open to growing and open to learning. And if I listen to you and I don't agree with you, at least I listen to you. I can't just immediately discount what you're saying. You know, that's what I was saying on one of the young people I was talking to on Facebook. It's like, you know, I see that I'm not going to get through to you. I see that you're kind of stuck where you are. So thank you anyway for, you know, the pleasant discourse. But people just are they're afraid to let go of their long held beliefs and challenge. It's kind of like people with religion, you know, with Christianity. Again, I'm not going to delve too deep into anything that might be, you know, contradictory, but you know, you tell people Jesus was black, it's like, no, 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 no. Jesus is the white guy with the long hair, the beard, and the blue eyes, and it challenges everything that they've believed. They don't want to be challenged. They want to be nice and comfortable in whatever their thoughts and beliefs are. And I think that's part of why people are resistant to these kinds of conversations. And I think also, unfortunately, I think some people also, I was sharing with Queenie yesterday, I think it was, that, you know, it's normal for someone to look at me and expect me to want to have certain types of conversations, whether it's about black women, whether it's about women, whatever it is, because of what I look like. Sure, of course you want to have that conversation, Dorina, but people don't want to have that conversation. You know, they don't want to talk about these things. They don't. Why? It doesn't affect me. It doesn't have anything to do with me. Why do I have to talk about this? That's my thought. What about you, Queenie?
Um, I agree with what you're saying, and I also believe that sometimes those that choose not to have the conversation or don't want to confront it, it's difficult because sometimes they don't know what to say. They don't know how to say it. They were given a lot of the history themselves, and so to give up the power of owning the history leaves them with what? And it's like and I will talk about the religious aspect. It's like for those that go from being extremely religious to saying, you know what, I'm giving religion up altogether. I think many go through a phase of, well, what do I do now? Because you don't have the beliefs, you don't have those things that you could always go to and hold on to and use over people. And, you don't have that. And so, when I'll just use this as an example, which is probably going to be a problem. But like when you say, well, we're going to tear down certain statues because of the memory and the history, people are holding on to that for dear life. But why? Because understanding how it makes an entire race of people feel, and what it signifies. Um, and if we're talking about equality and justice for all, then why not get rid of that? And let's allow our children to grow up without those things in their face to keep them empowered, right? So I think people don't want to give up their power by hearing another side of it. Um, because how do you dispel your belief, like, oh, I'm just going to give in to you saying, and I'll use what you said, you're telling me Jesus is black because what, he was from Africa? No, this is him, we've painted him really really light. And how do you give that up? Because now who is going to worship a black Jesus when black is also the thing that they dislike the most, or they feel is not worthy, or has very little value. And that's just going heavy with it. But if you just having a conversation to understand why I may feel the way I feel, or even as me having a conversation with a white male or female, why do you feel the way you feel? And sometimes people just they don't have the answer because they were given it. All the books said so. My grandmother said so. My mother said so. And everybody in leadership says so because they all look like me. And that is enough. And you're sitting there like, but it's not right. It has never been right. So
Yes.
I mean, that's all I can add to that. It's just, I think, Carrie, it's just, it's uncomfortable when you don't know what to say. And when you feel that everything you're going to say is probably going to be wrong anyway, so you just choose not to have the conversation, and you just want to. It's okay. So, Dorina, I don't see color. That's kind of what you would rather say, like, oh, I don't see color, which then would make everything okay. But that's just not true. It can't be true. You got to see who we are. You got to understand that there is a thought and a voice inside of me, and I have an opinion. And my real history didn't start with slavery. My history started when I was in my native country. That's my history. You know what I mean? So having that real conversation It's difficult for some people. It's uncomfortable for some people. How did we get here? We don't want to talk about that, you know, because we're okay now. We had a Black president. So,
You know, I appreciate these conversations. You know, Queenie, I think maybe Dorina, you and I were talking about this too. I had said to you, you know, like you said, I think some people are like, well, what do I do or how do I help? And everybody does it in a different way. And for me, it's been, I learn a lot by talking to regular people, you know, and hearing stories. And I had one the other day where I was a little bit in tears because I had heard things I hadn't heard before. And I just wanted to give, like, I wanted to give a hug and I was frustrated. And he said to me, he goes, now you know how we feel. Yeah. And I was like, okay, I get it. I can't fully understand it because I'm not living in your shoes, but I can empathize or be compassionate to what is happening. And it helps me kind of share or tell your story. But again, it's even better when it comes from your own voice. And so I think that that's really important. And I'm curious, you know, both of you are parents to kids. Queenie the other day was like, I'm so old. I'm going to be a grandma. And I was like, no, what are you talking about? She is not old by age or by look or by spirit, but she says, because she's going to have a grandkid anyway. So I'm just curious, like, what are each of you teaching your kids? What have you taught them through the years about mindset, about being a person in general, and also about being, you know, a person of color? And how does that fit into what's going on now? So I'm curious because both of your kids are kind of that high school, college age or a little bit older, correct? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Dorina, if you want to start, I'm just curious, you know, with your girls who I've met before who are wonderful and can also dance, you know, I had them a couple of times as well, but would love to hear your thoughts on kind of how you're parenting, how you have been parenting, and especially during this time. And again, also both of you have done it as single parents for quite a long time as well.
So my parenting philosophy when my children were very small and first able to understand like 2-step commands, etc., was always how to be good human beings, period. Be a good human being. As they got older and, you know, I'm having the battles with my oldest who it was and is more like me than I was ever willing to acknowledge. As she and I started to battle more, it was still, listen, my job is to make sure that you are human beings that love and are capable of being loved. And I would stress that to them constantly. Be the person that when you have a conversation with someone, and this is as they're getting older and older, when that person walks away from a conversation with you, they feel good. Don't leave people feeling bad, you know, because they've had a conversation with you because you weren't able to manage your emotions and you gave it all to that person. Just be a good human being. I would share stories with them about things. Again, as they got older, my anecdotes got a little bit different. And I remember sharing with them a story when I worked at Khaki, went to this deli downstairs in my building, and the staff that worked there, none of them English none of them spoke English as their first language. I went there so often, I got to know them very well and would have, you know, just quick conversations. But one day I was in there and there was this white lady in line behind me while I was waiting for my food. And the guy, I think he was African. I don't know exactly where he was from, but she was upset with him because the customer was upset with him because she told him she wanted a type of bread. I don't remember if it was white wheat or whatever, but either he didn't understand or he just got it wrong. And she went off on him and she was saying, if you can't speak English, you shouldn't live in this country. You know, that whole thing that we've heard people say. And I wasn't having it. And so I said something and I shared that story with my children, not to say, oh, your mom is a badass. She is. I'm just kidding.
Yes, she is.
It's not you. Even if it's not you, you speak up for people. It doesn't have to be happening to you in order for you to care about someone. And again, as they got older and older, we'll be safe about it, you know, but if you hear someone, you know, verbally berating a friend of yours, speak up. Don't you be the person that is sitting in the background, just, well, it's not me, so I'm not going to say anything. So my children are growing up to be young women who don't have to have a particular experience or look a certain way or have a certain thing or whatever in order to care about other people. And that's what I want for them. And in this particular time, I am watching my oldest. She turns 18 this year. Talk about being old, Queenie. I'm old, but she I'm watching her, I follow her on Instagram. I don't like anything. I don't, interact with her except when she takes pictures in my room and I'm like, dude, stay out of my bedroom. But I'm watching her have these conversations with people about current events. And I'm just like, wow, okay. Okay, she's listening. She's speaking up. She's not, I even though I was a very silly child, I was also a shy child and wouldn't necessarily speak up for myself. And that could be my where I rank in the sibling structure. But she isn't afraid. There was a point even at work where I wouldn't say certain things because I didn't want to be branded as the angry Black woman. But I'm watching her and I'm just like, wow, she didn't even care. She doesn't even care. They know to be responsible. They know that everything that happens on here lives forever. And I stress that to them over and over and over and over and over. But I'm watching her just like have these verbal battles and I love it. And I'm like, and the only thing I tell her is like, listen, if someone says, hey, I didn't think about things that way, I'm sorry. Let them be sorry. Be gracious with that. Don't pound them or don't keep attacking them. And then also have facts. Be sure that you have facts. Don't just talk from emotion. Look things up, research things, ask me, ask your dad, just be factual with things. So I think that I hope that my children go out into the world as young women who, again, going back to when they were 4 or 5 years old, who love and are capable of being loved and who are just living their lives as good humans. Just really quickly, I had a conversation with my boss's boss. He made a comment that I thought was a little insensitive. And I said something in real time to him. And right after that it was a Zoom call. After that Zoom call, 2 people reached out to me to kind of apologize on his behalf and also for themselves for not speaking up. I didn't hear from him for a week. And I'm just like, what's my expectation? Do I expect him to say something? I don't really know how I feel about the fact that he hasn't said anything. So he finally reaches out to me and he apologizes, and it's a genuine apology. It's not just, I'm sorry if I offended you. It was, I didn't think about when I said blah, 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 how that might make you feel, or how that I didn't take into consideration, blah, 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 blah. And he was talking about how his daughter, who is, I think she's maybe 10, how she's growing up here in Loudoun County and is kind of immune to certain things. And I said, let me tell you something. I said, my children, they split their time. I am single, but I co-parent. And I think we've reached a point where we co-parent very well. But, they spend time with their dad and they spend time with me. My children, I told him, I said, are living a very privileged lifestyle. This is not the life that I lived. My daughter's like, I want to go to the mall. Dad puts $200 on her little credit card so she can go to the mall. I didn't live like that. There was no, and I told him, I said, try to understand how my children feel, knowing that they basically can have anything they want because they have parents that are living a fairly good life, but they also know that when they get into the car, in their American Eagle jeans and their Vans or whatever they're wearing, the Air Force Ones, whatever they're wearing, they can get pulled over and they could end up not coming home. I said, imagine how my children feel. Your daughter is immune to this. She doesn't understand any of it. I said, so I have to explain to my children, it's very different. It's a very different point of view. It's not just you might not come home. So they have to reconcile, wait a minute, but I live here. Why do I have to worry about that? It's a really strange time to be a parent, I think. No matter what you look like, I think it's a strange time to be a parent. And I really, really, really wholeheartedly believe that we were talking about how some people don't want to let go of their long held beliefs and they don't want to let go of the things that were drilled into them. Well, that goes back to how we parent when our children are very small. I really believe that it starts with how we raise not just our children, but the children that we come into contact with. What choice are we going to make about what kind of people? Because I always tell my girls, everything I tell you is not for right now. It's not for my ego. It's for the human being that you're going to be when you go out into the world. Every single thing is about who you're going to be when you go out into the world. That's it. It's not about me. It's about who you're going to be when you're gone. And as Cameron turns 18, she's closer to being gone. And I feel like, okay, I got more stuff to tell her. What else? I got more lessons to give her. What else I can tell her? I mean, I just want them to be there. I think they're growing into good humans. I want them to be good humans that will speak up and fight for anything, even if it's not them. You don't have to be a certain thing in order for you to care about what's happening to somebody else. And I think that they're learning that.
Again, I want to congratulate you too, Dorina, because that's huge. I think unfortunately there are parents who want their kid to be the best at everything or have a certain job or have a certain level of quote unquote success. But I agree with you, even though I'm not a parent, I think pushing to be a good human is of utmost importance. And I think it's great that you're doing that. And then you're seeing your daughters kind of put that into action, even in a social media platform. So that's incredible to see. Queenie, what about yourself? Your kids are how old?
My son is 22 and my daughter's 19. So yes.
So they're official adults.
They are official. And I am officially old.
I disagree, but continue. Go
I'm
ahead.
gonna be called grandmama soon. So,
Grandma.
no, you know what? Because my grandmother was my favorite person, I'm going to own the grandma.
You're gonna own it. Okay, I like it. I like it.
Grandma. That's who I'm gonna be. They're gonna be like, oh, my grandma was fly. Show up. So you know what? As far as my kids, boy, girl, I have a daughter that's 19. She's a Taurus. She is definitely a Taurus. And she was very driven from the very beginning. So she loved school. School academia was her thing. That was just her thing. My son, sports became his thing. So, taking them through the schools, I wanted to make sure, or while they were in school, so I wanted to make sure that they did not grow up like I grew up with the experience of living where my mother had me, where my mother raised me or where I spent years with her at. So I never wanted to go back to the town that I grew up and raised them because what I saw there was poverty, a lot of drug activity, and it was a mentality that I did not want my children to be exposed to. So I made choices once I divorced that I was never going to take them back to that town until they were adults. I did not want them to have the struggles that I had, even though I knew that I was going to be a better parent. I still didn't want them to see people of color that were not, affluent, right? Because that is kind of what some people assume that we are. All that, that thing of just in the hood, under the big oak tree, drinking, sitting on the porch, smoking, no education, no, and that's just a lie, right? But I lived here in this Northern Virginia area. I raised them once I became a single parent, and it's very affluent here. I mean, it's, people of all walks of life, great culture, experience, and exposure. I couldn't have picked a better area to raise them. They are privileged, however. That's probably the downfall because I also had to give them two realities. The reality that they got in school, which was, the one that we all go through. We go through regular school. We're all told many of the same things. And it's to get us to an adult stage so we can work and operate like little robots, right? So I allowed that to be that. But then at home, excuse me, at home, they were exposed to a mom that's conscious about the streets, about life, about the importance of giving back and being the best person that you can, but about understanding that sometimes isn't good enough because the world will suck you up and spit you back out. My kids used to say, Mom, you go to the extreme. And I'm like, I do, because that's what life is. Right now, we're living in the extreme. And I honestly think if I wouldn't have told them about this when they were 7, 8, 9, 10, that right now would totally be consuming them. But it's not. They've heard all of the horror stories. They've heard me, constantly preach to them about days of hanging They've heard me talk to them about the miseducation of the Negro by Carter Woodson. I mean, they've heard all of this. None of this did they get in school. They didn't hear about Banneker. They didn't hear about Clark, Hendrick Clark. They didn't hear about any of those people. So I gave them that education at home, whether they wanted it or not, because my daughter would be like, oh my God, not another. Because she lived in this community that was, we were definitely the minority, and they had it good and privileged. And even though she felt like she was struggling, she was not, but I still gave it to them. And we'd be driving down the road, and I would put on a lecture from ever ago that had nothing to do with anything that they were hearing in history class. Dr. DeGrury, I would play her PTSD lectures. I would play the ISIS papers lectures, and my kids would just be like, oh my God, it's too conscious for them. And I say, I always tell you, Carrie, so the word consciousness is kind of a Black term that we use when we talk about the conscious community. Just not that you don't know, but I just want to put that out there for the
I appreciate it. Yes.
I don't know. So when we speak about that, I raised them in a very conscious home with the duality of seeing privilege, seeing a very diverse home. Mom had tons of friends of all races, all nationalities from everywhere, different accents. They have always been able to date and freely be with anyone they chose to be with, as long as there were good people with them and that person was good to them. But they've had that nugget of consciousness that has always played true in our home, no matter what. When I'm talking, I'm speaking passionately, and I'm talking about the civil rights movement. I'm talking about post civil rights and pre-civil rights. They're like, okay, it's more than just Harriet Tubman, Martin Luther King, and the Sharptons and Jacksons of the world. We're talking about real Black people that have done a lot of things to create change and a consciousness within our people. And they weren't going to get that in school. And so that's the mom I was. And now they're older. I mean, my son is, he's conscious enough, and he always wants to know more. My daughter's still not there yet, but it's a seed that's planted in her. And I gave them that because I knew one day they were going to need it. They are going to need it, because if they're in a conversation, they're going to need to understand that there's a few histories being told. And there's a few histories being told, and they need to know both sides of those histories, so that if they ever get into a debate or discussion, they're able to offer something different to someone they don't know, versus just taking in Christopher Columbus discovered us. Wait a minute, they're able to say, well, maybe that's true, but do you remember the Moors? They're able to have that conversation, and I believe, especially like kids, the Generation X and what is it, Z's? Is that right? I believe that they're more open. Many of them are more open to hearing the other side. They're like, oh, really? I didn't know that even existed. Because if you look right now, kids of all races and colors and nationalities are out marching and fighting and screaming and demanding together. And that comes from a space of them hearing both sides and realizing, oh, wait a minute, that may not even be true. So I empowered my kids with that. And that was what I thought was going to be best for them, in addition to understanding that you have to be good humans and give back, but knowing that the world is not always going to be good to you. And you have to be able to stand up and not just fight for yourself, but fight for those that are coming behind you, because that's how we got here. Someone fought for this, and they need to do the same thing. And even the least of us, those that are homeless, that are unsheltered, without clothes, you do not treat them differently. You figure out how you can be of service to them if you can, if they're receptive. And if you can't, you still don't treat them any differently. You just go your own way and know that you did all that you could. And that's pretty much how they move in this space. So
I am just very impressed, I think, by both of you, again, how not only the things that you both have overcome, but also the way that you've raised your kids. Again, kind of these similarities of be good humans, be conscious, be aware, help others, which I am 100% about all the time. And I want to finish up here with If either of you have any closing thoughts or suggestions on either how someone that's maybe not in a great situation of some sort or feeling frustrated or angry at a situation they're in, can get their mindset to the right place, if you want to answer that question, and or on the other side, in the context of everything that's kind of going on right now within the Black Lives Matter, although again, this has been going on for years, it's just been brought to light in the last few weeks. But any other remarks on thoughts that people maybe should be thinking about that they don't have? So if you want to answer either question or both, it's up to you. Dorina, I'll let you start.
I think your mindset is highly dependent on your being receptive and open. Queenie just used those exact terms. If you're mired in this negative space and you have people around you that feed that negative space, I don't know how you're able to shake free from that. If you are not open to, maybe I should look at this differently, or I had a conversation with Queenie and she said this, and maybe I can look at this differently, or I was reading this article and man, that challenges what I've always believed. But if you're not ready, it really is all about your mindset. If you're not ready, then I don't think there is any changing of one's mind. And I feel so hopeful right now. I feel like what we're witnessing is so much different than it was a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago. And I have a level of hope that I did not have before, because just as you were saying, Queenie, this generation is literally making change happen.
Yeah.
You know, whether it's behind, on social media, whether it's out there marching, whatever it is. And I think I've kind of combined the two questions to answer, but I don't think that if you're not ready, your mindset isn't going to change. If, I spend, all these years in a negative place because, my marriage fell apart and I don't feel loved, or I'm bitter, or, the friends I had, they abandoned me, or whatever it is. If I have these feelings, if my mind isn't ready, I'm not going to be open and receptive to a different thought process. So you have to be ready. You have to be ready. You have to be open to it and do the work, because it's not easy.
Well, and I think that answers actually both questions very well. Queenie, what are your thoughts on either of these?
The mindset changing is, I agree with what Dorina is saying on that. I think that your appetite or your thirst or desire to change has to be larger than the habit that you've formed, right?
Wait, say that again. That was really good.
I think that your desire or appetite to change has to be larger than the habit that you had before, right? So you have to, in my thought, just like trying to lose weight. I mean, either your appetite to eat more and to sit more is larger than your desire and appetite to say, you know what, I'm going to focus on these things. I'm going to eat less or more nutritional meals, and I'm going to exercise more. So I think inside of you, when your spirit says this isn't right, when you everything around you is saying this isn't right, I think you need to listen to that internal voice. Now, this is a person that's desiring to change, because some people just don't want to change. But I think the people that want to change and they don't know where or how, or like what's the first step, I think really it's owning and understanding, like the 12-step program, right? You got to own and understand that you have a problem. Like, there's something that I'm missing. I got to do something different. I have to be different. And when you do that, you'll seek out the change. You will be thirsty. You'll look for it. You'll find opportunities and ways, because now your appetite for change is overpowering you. So I think for those that may be listening, that they desire some type of change and they want to connect in some way, whatever that is in their life, then I believe that you just have to really will yourself. And that may sound really cliche and it may sound easier said than done, but oftentimes you do have to will yourself into that space of change, because we can will ourselves into a space of detriment and all this other stuff. So why can't we will ourselves to be different? You know, even if you have to disconnect from certain influences, you just have to just do that, because you're saving your own life and your own sanity. You're saving that for you, not for anyone else. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, I hope I answered that okay, but
Yeah.
you know, that's just what I feel in my spirit. And as far as the BLM, I think the one thing I would love to see right now, and I don't know if this is exactly a great answer for you, but this is what I'm feeling, is what I would love to see with BLM is a unification with the old mindset of the civil rights leaders and the new mindset of the Black Lives Matter. I do believe that we need to unite so that we can have more guidance, because they have the power to create the change that they want to see. It sometimes is perceived as reckless, and where in history has things ever not been radical, right? And there's been a lot of collateral damage. It is. That's just what history has taught us in those same books that they teach in school, right? So we don't need to act surprised of the visceral response that's going on currently, right? What I think what we should do is think of ways that I personally, like I said, would love to see the old civil rights and the new BLM come together. But I also would love to see I mean, sometimes you can't change the mentality and mindset of those that are elitists and that are in power, or have a feeling of supremacy. But for those that are willing to change, then I want us to join together, because that's the only way we were able to make anything happen back in the 60s. That's the only way we've ever been able to make anything happen, is that we have a little bit of everybody creating the change and being the change that we truly want to see. So that's where I am with that.
Beautifully said. You need to write some of that down as well. The one quote you said earlier, I had you say twice. For me, certain words just resonate. And the way you said that, I was like, yes, we need to hear that again. It's really well said. Yes, it's recorded. We're going to write it down too. If people want to connect with either of you, Dorina, is there a place that they can do that? I'm going to ask you first.
I'm just a regular old person.
And if you don't want people to connect with you, if they're hearing this or seeing this, I know some people are more private, but I like to always ask. So it's up to you. Some people say Facebook, Twitter. Some people have a website. Some people have different things.
Yeah, I'm on Twitter. I'm not very active. I think my name is Kryptonite there. You can DM me on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. My Instagram is open, but I think I am also D Love there. I am not my name, but they can always, if it's really important to them and they really feel compelled to reach out, they're more than welcome to, kind of go through you, and you can reach me on Facebook. You can always DM me if it's.
Yes, we have people, like I said, that feel more private, and you have a question. I always ask that because sometimes people hear someone, they resonate really well, and they're like, wow, I'd really love to connect. Sometimes that happens, sometimes that don't, but I like to give that option. So I appreciate that. People can always, again, reach out to me and I can connect. But Miss Queenie Love has a podcast. She has a few things going on. So where can we connect with you, Queenie?
So before I say that, let me go back to Dorina, because Dorina makes everything seem so small and simplistic. Dorina is a hell of a writer.
Dorina, didn't you just say you weren't writing? She's writing and not telling us?
I have a blog it's kind of dormant right now, but I've been
Dorina, it's time.
Comfort zone.
That's right.
But I've been thinking about things that I want to talk about, so I can revive the blog. Yes, that's true.
Yes, she's a writer, and she had, and I mean, I'll toot a horn. Sometimes it's hard for us to toot our own horn, but I will toot a horn. She had her own business, and I think she was editing.
Flowers. That's also dormant, but it's coming back because I just ran out of time.
I'm going public with it.
I ran out of time. So, Wildflower. I know she put me out there. That's it's true. I started my own business in 2015, and um, it's just it's the time. It's the time, and I'm sure you both can relate. It's what do you make time for? What's important to you, and how are you using the time that you have for those things that are important. So
Yes,
that's
but it's
true.
also good to, this is the time at the end of every show I give people a moment to connect, and whatever that is, because you just never know who needs to hear from you, right? I always say there's not like a lot of new things. It's just everybody does it or says it differently, and it's going to resonate with different people. And so that's why I think
There's
it's
space for
important.
everybody.
So, yeah. All right, Queenie, where can we connect with you?
All right. Okay. Now that
She's
we
like,
got that out the
okay, yes, we're ready.
No, so you can always follow my podcast, and thank you for offering this space. You can follow my podcast. It's Bar Talks, BARTALKS. Bar Talks the podcast. That's on Facebook. I'm sorry. And on IG, it's BARTALKS_QLUV. I'm on Twitter as well, and I think I'm on there as Queenie Love. That's horrible. But I don't use it as much for people to follow me, but every now and again I will throw a podcast out there. But you can find me. I mean, I have the Hope Project, which is on Facebook, which is the Hope Project Cares. That's my nonprofit. That's where we do a lot of giving back to the community. And I think that's it. I feel like I might be forgetting something, but that's enough. You can always reach me through Carrie, of course. I'm sure my information will be available via Carrie's site as well.
Yeah, I want to thank you both. Like I said, Dorina, I've known you for a little while. I'm so glad I've met Queenie now. This is our second conversation. And, again, I just congratulate both of you for the things that you've overcome, the things that you've created and done, and being a part of this conversation. So thank you both so much for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie. You're a beautiful soul.
Yes.
Thank you for this space.
Thank you.